If you've had questions about deep flap breast reconstruction, um, implant-based reconstruction, raise your hand. If you've had questions that are unanswered from breast reconstruction or deep flap reconstruction, raise your hand. I know a lot of us. I know a lot of us have questions that don't necessarily get answered by, there aren't just like people. Sometimes you don't have a great surgeon out there that's going to answer every single question that you have. So you only have a certain amount of time to barrage them with these questions to get responses within that short time amount during your consultation, right? So we are going to go over my questions I had before deep flap surgery, the questions that I brought to my surgeon's attention, the things that were important to me. And these things may also be important to you. So I want you to have as much information as possible before going into your consultation. Because when I was looking online, I could not find a lot of answers pertaining to the things that I was actually asking. And people weren't asking the tough questions on these Facebook groups. Yes, babe. Okay, pardon the interruptions. Sorry, I get interrupted a lot, so it takes me a while to get these videos out. I'm trying to keep it on a schedule, but I have a 3-year-old that, let's just say it's difficult, okay? So, and I have 5 children, so let me try to remember where I was at. I know for y'all it seems like a split second, but it has not been a split second. Plus, when you've had a hysterectomy, your brain is brain fog all day long and you can't freaking think. So, let me think. What are we doing? Let me pause this and see what we were. So, people weren't asking, I don't know, I feel were the tough questions on these Facebook groups. Some of them were, of course, but I feel like most of my questions were unanswered. And it's not every day you get to meet with a surgeon, a plastic surgeon, to go over your questions. So, since myself, I didn't find the tough questions I was looking for, or the answers to the tough questions. Because it doesn't really matter if somebody asks the tough question. If you don't have the answer to it, then that question is going to be in one of your question slots to ask the plastic surgeon when you have that consultation. So you have about an hour in the consultation. It's not an hour of asking questions because obviously they want to check everything. So I would say you only have about a good 10 to 15 minutes to ask questions. And that's including the responses from the surgeon as well. So I would say you only have probably 6 slots of good questions that you can write down to ask. My point is, you can't just write an infinite amount of questions that you have, because we all have an infinite amount of questions to ask these plastic surgeons, but you don't have that much time, right? So I want you to have as much info as possible. That way, the questions that you don't have to ask, they don't have to take up time. So you can ask a different question or a more, scoped in question, because now you're going to have the information for some of the questions that you might have had asked. So that's the whole point of me doing these videos, is so that you have as much info as possible. Going into your surgery, you can make an informed decision to know you're making the best choice, for your life, because this decision cannot be taken lightly. It is a lifelong choice. Okay. Yes, there are revisions that can be done, but most of the time, you're not going to want to go in further surgeries if you don't have to, obviously. So, let's get into it. I found my old notes. So I was cleaning out my phone, and I found my old notes document that had my old DIEP lab questions in it from when I was going to get my second opinion. So I'd already seen one plastic surgeon. And so I already had some of my answers. But I might not have had the response I wanted for some of my answers. Which I think that was mainly the case. But the point is, I had some answers, and I had spoken with the plastic surgeon before I wrote down these questions. So I kind of knew, what was going to go on, what was going to have to happen for my surgery to take place. And this was during the time that I was debating on doing DIEP lab surgery, because I was told that if I did DIEP lab surgery, then I probably wouldn't, get the bust size that I was wanting. So I am usually probably a small A, and I was wanting to be a small C. Honestly, I didn't think that was too much to ask, especially some of the pictures I'd seen. I really didn't think that was too much to ask. But my first surgeon thought it was too much to ask. My second surgeon gave me better information. So, today, I have already had my DIEP lab surgery. I have already had my revision surgeries. So, I know the weight these questions hold. And I know the answers to these questions. And I know they're pretty simple to answer. So, it's very weird looking back on those questions I had. Some of them seem very silly, especially now. But they mattered, okay? And they will matter for you. So, let's get into my questions. Okay, so just letting y'all know, this is my actual notes app. So, there might be some of my information in here. Obviously, you can see my notes in here. Waffles, Coca-Cola, some of my lists. Because, like I said, this was my actual notes document. And the date actually on here, let me see if I can change this. There. Okay. Oops, no. Sorry. So the date on here actually, up here at the top, you can see the date created. Oops. Can we not do that, please? So you can see it created March 12th, 2024. Okay, and when I click on it, it does the July 7th, 2026 date, just because that's when I went into the notes document last, okay? So let's get started. All right. So you can see it says Q for Dr. Bunting. Okay, so Dr. Bunting was my second opinion. So she was a doctor that was at, I probably need to change this because actually I ended up going with Dr. Honore from the same facility. So this was, let me actually add this in. Austin Plastic and, sorry guys, I'm not trying to, recon surgery. Okay, so Austin Plastic and Reconstructive Surgery, based in Austin, Texas. I'm from the Texas Hill Country. So Austin is about an hour away from me. But I'm trying to make sure I don't get too close to the mic, so I apologize if that's hurting y'all's ears. All right. So let's change. I'm going to put slash Dr. Honoré. That way y'all can see how it's spelled. Because you can look her up. Okay. So Dr. Honoré was the doctor that actually did my surgery. Dr. Bunting was the one I had the consultation with. She was pregnant at the time and about to go on a maternity leave. But she was going to be back in time for my surgery and all that good stuff. When I actually went in for my like hang on just a minute, baby. So when you go in, you do your consultation, and then when you decide that you're going to use that surgeon, then you come back for another since I was only let's see, how far out from radiation was I? This was March. So I had just got out of radiation probably 6 weeks prior. And they want you to be 3 months to 6 months out from radiation. That way your skin has had time to heal. So they wanted me to come back. If I decided to use Dr. Bunting, they wanted me to come back after, 3 to 6 months. And so we scheduled that. But then when I came back, I actually saw Dr. Honoré. Dr. Bunting did not come back. They told me, which I found out later on, they told me she did not come back after her maternity leave, but actually something else happened internally from the surgery center, I guess, or from this surgery place. But I do not hold it against them. I know things happen, things go on that you cannot necessarily control. Didn't have anything to do with her maternity leave. I'll say that right there. But I did like Dr. Bunting, and I absolutely love Dr. Honoré. She will give it to you straight. She does not feed into the BS. And she did an absolutely phenomenal job. I will say that right there at the top. So, now, let's get into the questions, finally. So, my first question was, does not having expanders put in place before my radiation... I am in the middle of my question, Racelet. So, my first question was, does not having expanders put in place before my radiation... So let's do this. Does not having expanders put in place before my radiation hurt my chances of having a little bit larger breast? Does not having expanders put in place before my radiation hurt my chances of having a little bit larger breast size? So, this was a big topic for me because I didn't have expanders put in place before I started radiation. I didn't have expanders put in place at all. So, when I had my first surgeon, like I had told y'all, before I went to this specific surgeon, I had another surgeon, and she didn't want to put expanders in. I'm not sure why. We're not going to go into that right now. She didn't want to put expanders in before my radiation, and so I didn't have expanders in. And so it was a big topic for me. I was very worried that not having those expanders in wouldn't allow my skin to stretch like I wanted it to, like I needed it to get to the size that I wanted. And the way Dr. Honoré answered this, she said, for one, we'll just have to see, but I can give y'all a little bit of more substance to that. So they can stretch the tissue even if you do not have expanders put in place. I know a lot of women have issues with expanders, and I know sometimes it can create a really weird look after the DIEP flap is put in, and I'm not sure what happens. Obviously, I'm not those people, so I'm not sure what happens. I know mine turned out excellent, okay, without expanders. Excellent. And so I wouldn't say that's because I didn't have expanders put in place. I can't tell you what would have happened if I had expanders put in place because I didn't. So we're going to go at this, like I said, like how I was told. Okay, so they can stretch the tissue through different types of surgeries. But most women aren't as small as I am, I would say. I'm about 130 pounds, 5'6". And so I'm not petite. I am kind of, I'm average size, I guess you would say. But I am a smaller framed woman, especially after having 5 children. I would say I'm a smaller framed. So I didn't have that much tissue to move from my stomach to 2 breasts. Hang on 1 second. My child's having an issue again. So that was one of my main questions. I was so worried that not having expanders would hurt my chances. And I've already told y'all that I went from originally a 34A, and they got me to a 32C/D. So I realized my breast size was completely wrong. My bra size, I guess you could say, was completely wrong. So I'm actually at 32 around. I'm actually 30 around, but actually 32 around. Which could have been some of my issue with, bras not fitting properly when I was growing up. Anyway, I digress. So they got me to a pretty big size, I would say. And I did not have much tissue for them to move up. So I'm going to try to overlay some pictures on here. Let's see how this is going to work, though. Let's see if I can get this done. Okay. We're going to go back here. Okay, give me 1 second. Let me try to overlay some pictures. Okay, so you can see here, I don't have much of a gut. This was before. You can tell I don't have much up top going on either. So this is why I was worried about expanders not being put in place prior to radiation. So they had to split my stomach in half. Okay, so they... can y'all see my cursor? I wonder if y'all can see my cursor. Okay, anyway. So they had to split my stomach. So they had to take it from the top part up here. I don't think y'all can see my cursor. They had to take it from the top part, split it, okay, and make 2 new breasts out of it. Okay, so that's why I was worried about expanders not being put in place, because I knew I didn't have much to work with, right? Okay, so now let's go back into my notes document. So let me again answer that question. No, You do not have to have expanders put in place to have a larger breast after DIEP surgery. Is it helpful? I think it is helpful to have expanders put in place because it does stretch that. You can see my darkening right here from radiation, right? And it's not very stretchy versus over here. It's pretty, you got a lot more stretch over here. I don't know. I can't show y'all. Anyway, there's a lot more stretch over here going on than this side, okay? But I'll say that for another video. Okay, so let's go back into my... No, not that. We are going to go back into my notes. Let's clip this out of here. Let's get that down here. All right. I think I'm finally getting the hang of this crap. All right. Now, excuse me. My next question is... I want to uncheck that. Okay, so if I choose DIEP flap, would I be able to slim my stomach afterwards? So I know this is a big question just because I've seen some pictures out there, and this is one of those questions that I know a lot of women have, but they don't want to ask it because it pertains to most of the pictures we're seeing online, right? We see those square box shaped stomachs, and you wonder, can I slim my stomach after DIEP flap surgery, or am I just left with, whatever it looks like after DIEP flap surgery, right? And I can tell you, yes, you are able to slim your stomach afterwards. Okay, so I've gone from having a box shape. Let me see if I can get y'all some pictures again. Let's see. Hold on, guys. I'm sorry. Okay, so let's see. So I've gone from having a box shape to slimming down to, let me see, I can probably show y'all one of these. Let me try to show y'all one standing up.
It's not raining anymore.
What?
It's not raining anymore.
It's not raining anymore?
Okay,
let me try to move this over. Now you can see my stomach is pretty, it looks like, I would say it looks like a, regular stomach. And this is after my surgeries. You can see my scar actually down right on top of my bikini line. You can see my new belly button. You can see my new breasts. I don't have any scarring showing on my breast. I would say they look like regular, almost natural breast. So they did a very good job with that. And we're going to move that one down again. But, hang on again, my child. Okay, so now my next question was, I was told DIEP flap requires you to be bent over for 2 weeks following surgery. And I have back problems. So, and obviously this is a question I had. I worded it like, like a statement. But since this was before my surgery, I didn't know that it was going to be bent over for 2 weeks, 3 weeks, going on even 4 weeks. So it wasn't necessarily a full 4 weeks of, bent over like this. I would say it was almost a full 2 weeks of bent over like this. And then, then you're like this and you can't really, you feel like you can't straighten your back. And then you get to the point to where you start stretching it out more and more and more and more and more. And so now I can, see if I can show y'all. Now, my back is pretty straight, pretty regular, as can be. But I was like this for, my back, I realize now y'all probably couldn't hear me. So I figure, my back is pretty straight as it can be at this point, which is very helpful because I do have back problems. I have scoliosis and I have some disc issues. So that was a big question for me because I was expecting the doctor and being like, no, you're not going to be bent over for 2 weeks. And of course, she did not say that. She was like, yeah, it's a part of DIEP flap surgery because since they cut that part of your stomach, and then they pull the other half down, obviously that's gonna pull you forward, and you have to stretch that part out. It wasn't as bad as I expected it to be, though. I will say, my back pain was not as bad as I expected it to be, only because I made sure and bent at my hip and I didn't hunch. You know what I mean? I bent at, let's say this is my hip, this is my waist. I bent here rather than here. You know what I mean? So I didn't hunch over because that would have caused a lot more issues with my back. So yes, you will most likely be bent over for 2 weeks. Now, if you have a lot of skin there to play with, you're not going to be hunched over or bent over as much as long as I was, okay? Since I didn't have much to work with, and like I said, I'm smaller framed, it took a lot more stretching to get me, and I also have a pretty long torso too. The surgeon said my skin was already pretty taut when she did the surgery, and she said so after the surgery it was even more tight. So that's why it took me a lot longer than some people out there you'll see. So this next question, let's see. My next question was, what size is possible? And that's just a question you're going to have to write down and ask yourself because it depends on so many factors. Like I said, how much skin you have, how much fat you have down there, what size you're wanting, what size you were previously. So it depends on, there's all kinds of factors involved in that question. And then the next question, it would be helpful for you to write this one down as well. Any before and after pictures with women, let me highlight this. Any before and after pictures with women my size that wanted to go bigger. So like I said, in my situation, I wanted to go bigger, but If you're not wanting to go bigger, if you're wanting to stay your same size, I would at least say any before and after pictures with women my size or my frame. That is a very helpful question because you want it to kind of be your body type that you're looking at on the before and after pictures. So, and then my last question, can you lose weight after DIEP flap? And I'm going to tell you right now, yes, you can. You can lose weight after DIEP flap surgery. You can lose weight after DIEP flap surgery. It's not as big of a deal as I was thinking it was. I don't know why. I don't know why I assumed that you couldn't lose weight. I think I was assuming you couldn't lose weight like in your stomach area, like it wasn't possible. Because that skin is stretched, and because of how a lot of DIEP flaps look, I guess I was assuming that. So, if you have any more questions that you would like for me to answer, or you would like for me to just put up on my channel, go ahead and put them down in the comments. I check my comments often. But if you're just, looking for answers on DIEP flap, on breast reconstruction, on implants, on cancer, go ahead and subscribe to my channel. I try to do videos weekly, at least once a week if I can. But it's very helpful me knowing, your questions. And I always love having new people join my channel because it seems like a little girl talk for me. I don't know. I don't get much time to myself, so this is my little girl talk sessions that I get to have. So, but thanks for being here with me, and I will see y'all in my next video. So the next video we will touch on I'm trying to think. We'll probably touch on more other people's pictures and some more oh, you know what? That's actually what we're going to do probably in the next video is we're going to go on doctors' websites and we're going to go looking at before and after pictures. So, if you want to put your size, it'd be very helpful to put your size down in the comments. If that's not something you're wanting to do, I understand. Just shoot me a message, honestly. And I can look up that specific size and stuff. And if you want your handle name put up on my channel, I have no problem doing that. That actually would love to do that. So yeah, let me know if that's something that y'all would find helpful. But other than that, I will see y'all in my next video.